In small-town Canada, if you're a local, some spots can be extra important, like the grocery store.
You went there to find out who was born, who had passed away. It was there where we had lists. If someone was getting married, you could contribute for a shower gift or a wedding gift. It was a gathering place, is what it was.
She says was, past tense. That store closed because they couldn't find anyone to buy it. Hi, I'm Paul Haberstrood. Welcome to The Cost of Living. Do you want to buy a small business in a town or a big city? Because there's a lot to be had. A wave of business owners are looking to sell, cash out, and retire. The problem? Finding a buyer. And speaking of small towns, a lot of places across the country that you may or may not have visited are saying, hey, things are kind of weird right now. So if you don't want to travel stateside this summer, why not come here? Up first, the price tag for Canada's top 100 infrastructure projects is estimated at $300 billion. That's twice as much as a decade ago. And now we're talking about adding more mega projects. Good thing we're super good at keeping costs under control. Grant Furling wanted to work for himself, so he quit his job, got his own welding rig, and became an independent contractor. That was 26 years ago. In that time, he's seen good times and bad. And when things are good,
we can build whatever we want. We're making probably about $1,500 a day when it's really, really busy.
On those kinds of big money jobs, when you're a contractor, you can charge for everything.
On some sites, if I have a trailer there, I can bill out my trailer. If I have a sledgehammer there, I can bill out my sledgehammer for $25 a day. A crowbar only cost me $50, and I'm billing it out at $25 a day.
I should have been a welder.
I should have been a doctor.
Okay, yeah, maybe we all should have been doctors. But he's a welder, and he's on the job site. And when you're there, time is money. But that doesn't mean everything runs on schedule. Grant can show up and be ready to go, but they aren't always ready for him.
That's every job. I'm not kidding you. Like, I've been on jobs that you just sit there. They'll let us sit in our trucks for hours and hours because they're not ready for us. So they're billing us out at $150 an hour, and we're watching movies in our trucks. And they're paying us.
Right now in Canada, we're talking about building a lot of stuff. A pillar of new Prime Minister Mark Carney's economic plan is build. Ports, railways, highways, airports. Nation-building projects that will move goods and people across the country. The idea here is to help our own economy and help fight the trade war by making it easier to diversify away from the U.S. So, how much big construction can this country actually do, and how much will it cost? We're already building a ton of hospitals, roads, houses. And that's before these announcements for even more big projects.
Mostly with everything that we've heard from politicians, like the infrastructure will boom.
Infrastructure boom. Rod Gilbert likes the sounds of that. He's the head lobbyist at the Canadian Construction Association. So, sure, he's happy for all this talk of building, but he also has worries. Canada already has 63 mega projects on the books. These are projects with billion-dollar-plus price tags. Stuff like the $15 billion GO Train expansion in the GTA and Vancouver's $4 billion Fraser River Tunnel project. Add on this newest round of infrastructure promises, and it could mean a lot more demand for steelworkers, electricians, welders. And these are people we don't really have enough of already.
Today, we have 47,000 empty jobs. And when I say that, I just need to be precise on that. It's not that we're planning to hire or in the future we want to bring someone in. No. Today, there's 47,000 empty positions in our industry.
If we go on an infrastructure building spree, a bunch of mega projects go ahead, they'll all be competing for the same pool of workers. That won't be cheap. But here we are. We have a new government and near unanimous agreement that what we need to do is build.
We have reached a point where we're talking about mega projects constantly, and the scale of ambition of building has really ratcheted up. We've really leaned into this idea that we have to build this nation again, and the scale of that is massive.
Matti Semiatiki is a director of the Infrastructure Institute at the University of Toronto. He says Canada can build anything, but not everything. And what does go ahead will compete for scarce resources, people and materials. Whatever gets built, whether it's done by government or industry, some tough choices will need to be made. So, how does that happen?
It's alchemy. I mean, it's a combination of planning and technical rationales overlaid with politics, overlaid with the public interest and what the public is clamoring for. A project captures the imagination, and before you know it, that is what we're pinning all of our hopes and ambitions on. And sometimes those projects are great and they pan out and they change the country, and other times they are disastrous and can saddle a jurisdiction in debt.
When he looks at which projects could jump to the front of the line, he says it seems pretty clear, at least politically, which way the wind is blowing.
What you've seen more recently is now this talk about needing to go east-west and wanting to stitch the country together so that we trade more with ourselves and that we can trade out into the wider world. Ports to be able to move goods, and the north as well is really having a moment of attention. I mean, the other one on the more private side is mining and resource extraction. That has also come around and is getting a lot of attention. Now you're seeing a much more of an economic nationalism that's intersecting with, we have to get our resource extraction engine up and running again.
Anything heading across the country, transportation, electricity transmission, those are the types of projects that really seem to be hitting the sweet spot. Resources also seem to be back in vogue. That could mean building roads to remote places like Northern Ontario's Ring of Fire, or an Arctic port on the Northwest Passage. That project could come with a 230-kilometer road down to Yellowknife. So if those are the things that are getting the love, is anything falling out of favor?
What's waning? I mean, things to do with climate are certainly getting less attention right now, and there's some big projects and big initiatives that would be needed if we were really to be climate forward in our thinking and in our infrastructure. A lot of that seems to have fallen off the table to some extent.
Not that long ago, we were talking about spending $2 trillion to get Canada to net zero emissions. Now, it's all Trump and trade war and the urgency of loosening ties to the U.S. Infrastructure money can be fickle like that. Which is something to keep in mind, Matti says, now that we're on the verge of this potential infrastructure boom. Talking about building isn't the same as shovels in the ground.
I like a mega project as much as the next person, and I love ambition. I love when we think big to solve our major problems. I would also say take every announcement you hear with a big grain of salt, like the whole salt shaker. Announcements are part real and part political theater. A lot of mega projects, as much as they are technical, they're also highly political. And the announcement is part of the process of building public support, of showing leadership, of putting yourself at the center of the conversation. So we should, and not all of these projects get built. I mean, high-speed rail is a perfect example. There have been announcements about high-speed rail for going on 40 years now, and no one has set foot on a high-speed rail train.
A lot of infrastructure money right now seems to be up for grabs. And there's a real appetite to build big things. So some ingredients are in place for a legit infrastructure boom. But again, all of this will take people. And we only have so many with the right skills to go around. The construction industry wants Ottawa to bring more tradespeople into the country, but that could be trickier now that the government's pulling back on immigration. So as it stands, every new mega project that goes ahead will ratchet up the bidding for the same talent.
There's a limited supply of construction labor. And what does happen is when an economy is running hot and there's a ton of building, the prices go up. If you are really this desperate to want this project done and money is really no object to you, we will go out and build it for you. But the line on construction projects is they are over budget over and over again. The costs are typically underestimated by significant amounts because that's what gets the projects approved. And then once the project is approved, the numbers tend to creep and then in some cases gallop higher.
Costs can spiral, especially when it's on the government's tab. Look at the Trans Mountain Pipeline expansion. It went from $7 billion all the way up to $30 billion. Start stacking mega projects on top of each other with only so many workers to go around. And, well, Grant Froling, the welder, he can tell you, the money can really flow out the door. Not that he minds.
I'm 56 right now. If we got working right now, the billing would be so good, I'd be able to retire by the time I'm 60. If I just started my company now, I could retire in 5 years. That's how good the money would be.
Mega projects are mega dough. But, hey, we know if a boom does happen, we'll spend that money smartly. Right? This is The Cost of Living. Listen to us on CBC Radio 1 or wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Paul Haberstrood. Winnipeg's new tourism slogan? You can't ignore us forever. This summer, visit Canada's middle child. And the Peg isn't the only place that figures it's unloved. In what could be a weird year for summer vacations, for many Canadians, a trip to the States feels not awesome. Blair Sanderson finds all kinds of spots across the country are seizing this moment to say, why not come here?
Keith Folks says he won't set foot in the U.S. this year. He lives in Winnipeg and often takes his family south for a holiday. But with Trump in the White House, he's heading west instead, taking the kids to see the Dinosaur Museum in Drumheller.
You know, going on the number one highway, that's a very Canadian thing to do. And, you know, there's some smaller communities around Drumheller, so we can plan things out a little bit.
Keith says he's looking forward to the open road and open skies and keeping more of his money in the local economy.
We're going to spend our dollars in Canada where, you know, people might be having economic hard times, and we want to put our dollars where it can help Canadians.
It's been a long time since Canada's felt so united.
This is the latest tourism ad for Newfoundland and Labrador. Like the old ones, they feature icebergs and colorful clothes drying on a line. But now there's also a focus on the people in tiny towns taking in tourist dollars.
Jeannie will be the one to check you in at Jeannie's Sunrise Bed and Breakfast.
The plan appears to be working. The ferry service that takes visitors to the west coast of Newfoundland is up 7,000 bookings compared to this time last year. Wayne Smith is a professor of tourism at Toronto's Metropolitan University. He says people are searching for something a little more off the beaten track this summer.
You can go to Toronto anytime. You can go to Vancouver anytime, but you're not always going to go to, Wawa. And they're getting an experience that's very different.
It also might save them money. Wayne says all of this economic uncertainty right now has people looking for a deal and the comfort of a little Canadiana.
And they see that as being more in the small towns, places like Thunder Bay or Sudbury. And, when you go to Sudbury and visit the Big Nickel, it's one of those quintessential only Canadian things that you would do.
And if you're not close to Sudbury, how about going to see a big moose in Moose Jaw?
Mac the Moose is out front guarding the city. He's a 34-foot moose, and he's the tallest moose in Canada, or in the world. So it's kind of cool.
Donna Fritzky is the city's director of tourism. She says even for smaller communities, tourism is worth big bucks. She says last year it contributed $134 million to the local economy. And this year she's got high hopes for even more visitors. They're even offering free parking for people in RVs right outside the tourism office.
It's really kind of cool. And our parking lot, it's filling up already.
Can you see any RVs out the window now?
Goodness, my office is on the other side. But when I pulled up this morning, there was one, yes.
And as for Keith Folks of Winnipeg, he says he's still in the early phases of planning all the stops for his summer road trip. But he knows one thing, he won't be alone, staying closer to home.
And now's a good time to get off our butts and go see our local tourism spots.
For The Cost of Living, I'm Blair Sanderson.
This is The Cost of Living. I'm Paul Haberstrood. So, Danielle Nerman, have you ever thought about running your own business?
Yes, I have. I have a very large yard, and I love to garden, so garlic farmer.
Ambitious. I don't want to be a garlic farmer or really run any kind of business because it just feels like hard and busy.
Yeah, that's what you sign up for. Working weekends and holidays and really long hours. Like Anna Betty. She and her husband Ken opened Misty River Books in Terrace, BC in 1988. And even now, Anna sometimes spends 60 hours a week in the store.
Our kids call it the fourth child. The bookstore is our fourth child.
We've remortgaged the house 4 times to still be in business.
They really love that place.
It's their baby. And it's more than a bookstore. It's also a community hub. The store hosts poetry readings and sells tickets to concerts and plays. And Paul, it's also where the locals get their eggs.
Why?
Well, there's a lot of farmers in and around Terrace, so they need somewhere, to sell their eggs. So Anna set up a little fridge behind the till. Every day cartons get dropped off. And when the eggs come in, Anna puts a little chicken sign in the window.
There has never been a time where we don't have customers waiting for eggs to arrive. So, for example, today we got 12 dozen at 9 a.m. The fridge was empty. They were gone by 1 o'clock.
So people are coming, they're snatching up eggs, and she's just right in the thick of it.
Yeah, it's such a charming little store. But Anna is in her 60s and Ken's older than that, so they're looking to get out.
I've been ready for a wee while.
He's 78. So Ken is of an age where we have to think, how much time together do we have to travel and do some fun stuff?
And 37 years in the business, I think, is sufficient.
After nearly 4 decades, Ken and Anna are selling their bookstore. They are ready to retire.
A lot of that going around these days.
Yeah, more Canadians are getting older, and that includes a lot of business owners. There's more than 1 million of them in Canada, and more than 2/3 of business owners say they want to retire in the next decade. That's according to a survey from the Canadian Federation of Independent Businesses. It says Canada is facing a succession tsunami.
So this is just a wave of baby boomer business owners looking to cash out.
Exactly. But here's the worry. When the CFIB talked to business owners, they found that most of them don't have a plan. They don't know who will take over their businesses when they retire. And a big reason for that is they're really busy.
People don't often think about this on a day-to-day basis. They're mostly concerned about running their business and their operations and making sure everything is going smoothly there.
Marvin Cruz is the director of research at the CFIB. He says all the assets of all the businesses that could change ownership in the next 10 years are collectively worth $2 trillion. And that money is at risk if those businesses don't find successors.
That not only affects, the business itself at the micro level, but $2 trillion at a macro level for Canada's economy is quite a kick in the butt.
Well, yeah, sure, but it's not like every single one of those businesses is just going to go away.
Of course not, but some might. And every time a business closes, instead of being sold or passed on to the next generation, that can hurt the economy. The owner may have to declare bankruptcy. Their retirement savings might be wrapped up in those businesses. Employees will lose jobs. And you know who this really hurts? Small communities, where losing a small business can be devastating.
It was a big blow. It was, when we lost our store, that was bigger. That was bigger than losing the school, and that was bigger than losing the elevator.
Oh, they lost their grain elevator.
Yeah. Linus Jones lives in the heart of the prairies, Jansen, Saskatchewan. It's about an hour and a half east of Saskatoon. And Jansen hasn't just lost the grain elevator. About 15 years ago, the only grocery store in the village closed. Linus's wife, Kathy, says the store was more than just a place to grab a jug of milk.
You went there to find out who was born, who had passed away. It was there where we had lists. If someone was getting married, you could contribute for a shower gift or a wedding gift. It was a gathering place, is what it was.
So why didn't anyone take over the store?
Kathy says the owners left it too late. They were older, their health went downhill really fast, and they just didn't have enough runway to find a buyer.
Okay, but, presumably the store was running. It was probably making a little bit of money. You'd think they would be able to find someone to step in and take it over.
Not necessarily. Running a business is risky and not as popular as it used to be. Canada has 100,000 fewer entrepreneurs today than 20 years ago. Daryl Gertson is with the nonprofit Venture Connect. It helps small businesses with succession planning. He says right now, there's a lot of economic uncertainty.
It's a bit more scary to jump out on your own, and everybody's got a mortgage. Everybody's, running tight. The financing is a problem. Financing is a real challenge.
So buying a business isn't easy. And that's created a situation for owners where,
they look around and they go, geez, it takes a long time to sell a business. When my wife sold her first business 30 years ago, it took us a couple of months and she was out.
Daryl says today, on average, it can take 2 years to sell a business, even longer if you're in a smaller community.
Because in a small place, there's just fewer potential buyers and some people may not want to move there?
Yeah, that is part of it. But it's not always about the buyer, Paul. It's sometimes about the seller.
How so?
Well, small-town business owners can sometimes have really high standards. Daryl says often they've been in the community for decades, like Anna and Ken Betty. 40 years they've owned that bookstore. So, these owners, they have a close relationship with their customers and their staff, and they feel like they owe it to them to find exactly the right buyer.
They don't want to have, their friends saying, geez, I don't know what's happening to your business, but, I went in there the other day and nobody even talked to me and this happened and that, and that'll make them feel really uncomfortable.
So they really want to find the right person.
Yeah, they want a legacy for their business. So, they can be picky about who takes over, which isn't a bad thing. But if they keep passing over buyers and wait too long, they may not sell at all. So sometimes Daryl needs to give his clients a bit of a push.
You kind of, gently remind them that when they bought the business, they didn't have 20 years experience running the business. And someone might have thought they were an idiot. And they did just fine.
I'm sorry. So his strategy is the old, you were probably an idiot too when you were a kid. It's fine. Does that work?
It works. He did help sell 100 small businesses last year. And even though the market right now is kind of tough, Daryl says there are new buyers trickling in. He says since the pandemic, he's seeing more young people move from the city to the country and take over long-standing businesses.
Hey, small town living has a lot going for it.
Anna and Ken Betty think so. They're hoping someone out there wants to become a terracite. That's what the locals call themselves in Terrace. Their bookstore has only been on the market for 6 months. And
we have 4 people that are interested, and we have communication with them in the next month or so. And it's exciting, actually, and nerve-wracking at the same time.
So what she really needs is some like Gen Z who loves the rugged beauty of Terrace, BC, wants to become a terracite, own a bookstore.
Well, they'd never run out of eggs.
Gotta love eggs. Good eggs, fresh, farm fresh.
Yeah.
All right, thanks, Danielle.
You're welcome.
That's all for the show. The Cost of Living is based in Calgary. The show is produced by Danielle Nerman, Blair Sanderson, and Jennifer Keene, with help from Jeff Kynock. I'm Paul Habersrud. Thanks for listening.